Use these cards, spend freely. I don't want excuses. I want your truth. Daniel Harper's voice echoed in the opulent hush of his Chicago estate, his steely eyes locking onto Zuri Johnson, the loyal maid whose quiet strength he'd trusted for years, and Jessica Miller, his razor-sharp assistant with ambition in her veins. Two black credit cards lay before them, shimmering with limitless power. Zuri's breath caught, her heart pounding with doubt, while Jessica's smirk radiated confidence. In a city of dreams and deals, Daniel, a billionaire haunted by loss, isn't just testing their choices. He's hunting for someone to carry his late wife's torch. What follows will spark betrayal, unveil courage, and shatter expectations. Dive into this Chicago saga, hit subscribe, and tell us where you're tuning in from, day or night. One woman's heart will rewrite a legacy, leaving the world forever changed. The air in Daniel Harper's Chicago mansion hung heavy with the scent of polished oak and unspoken expectations. The grand dining room, bathed in the soft glow of a crystal chandelier, felt like a stage set for a drama yet to unfold. At the head of the long mahogany table sat Daniel, a 55-year-old tech magnate whose silver-flecked hair and piercing gray eyes carried the weight of a man who'd built an empire but lost his heart. His wife, Sarah, had been the soul of this house, her laughter once filling its cavernous halls. Now, 3 years after her death, the silence was deafening, broken only by the faint tick of an antique clock. Daniel's fingers drummed lightly on the table, his face unreadable, as he studied the two women before him. Worlds apart, yet bound by this moment. Use these cards, spend freely. I don't want excuses, I want your truth. His voice, low and deliberate, sliced through the stillness, each word landing like a pebble in a still pond. He slid two black credit cards across the table, their sleek surfaces catching the light like obsidian mirrors. One for Zuri Johnson, the maid who'd served him and Sarah faithfully for years, and one for Jessica Miller, his sharp-witted assistant whose ambitions seemed to pulse beneath her polished exterior. This wasn't a game, though it might have looked like one. Daniel was searching for something deeper, a spark of the selflessness Sarah had embodied, a sign of who could carry her legacy forward. Zuri Johnson stood to his left, her hands clasped tightly in front of her crisp white and blue uniform. At 27, she was strikingly beautiful, her smooth brown skin glowing under the chandelier's light. Her long black hair swept into a neat bun that spoke of quiet discipline. Her almond-shaped eyes, usually warm, now flickered with unease, darting between the card and Daniel's unflinching gaze. She'd been with the Harpers for nearly a decade, scrubbing floors, folding linens, and tending to Sarah's garden with a devotion that went unnoticed by most. But Daniel had seen it, the way she'd linger to water Sarah's roses after a long shift, the way she'd listen to Sarah's stories with genuine care. He trusted her, believed in the quiet strength she hid behind her gentle demeanor. Yet as she stared at the card, doubt gnawed at her. What did a maid like her know about limitless wealth? All she'd ever known was sacrifice. Orphaned young, she dropped out of school to raise her brother Ethan, now 18 and chasing a college degree she'd never had the chance to earn. Every penny she made went to him, to ensure he'd never know the hunger or fear she'd faced. Her heart thudded, a mix of fear and guilt. What if she misused this trust? Across the table, Jessica Miller radiated a different energy. At 29, she was a vision of calculated elegance. Her platinum blonde hair, cropped to her shoulders and curled in soft waves, framing a face that knew its power. Her lips, painted a bold crimson, curved into a confident smirk as she reached for the card with manicured fingers. The burgundy bodycon dress she wore, sleeveless, halter-necked, with a daring slit up her left thigh, hugged her frame, screaming sophistication and control. A small metallic clutch and white stilettos completed her look, each detail a testament to her ambition. Jessica had been Daniel's assistant for years, her quick mind and organizational prowess keeping his empire running smoothly. She thrived in the spotlight, her every move calculated to climb higher. To her, the card was a golden ticket, a chance to prove she belonged among the elite. Her pulse quickened, not with doubt but with hunger. She could already picture the doors this card would open. Designer boutiques, exclusive dinners, connections that would cement her place in Chicago's high society. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his hands steepled under his chin, watching them like a chess master studying his pieces. He wasn't just a billionaire throwing money around. He was a man haunted by loss, desperate to find someone worthy of Sarah's dream, a foundation that lifted the forgotten, the way she always had. Sarah had believed in people, in their capacity for good, and she'd poured her life into building shelters for the homeless, schools for the underserved. Before her death, she'd told Daniel, "Find someone who gives without taking, someone who sees beyond themselves." Zuri, with her quiet loyalty, had always seemed like that person to him, but he needed to be sure. Jessica, with her brilliance and drive, was a natural choice to test alongside her. Her efficiency was unmatched, but did she have the heart Sarah's work demanded? This test, these cards, would reveal their truths. Zuri's fingers hesitated above the card, her breath shallow. She felt the weight of Daniel's trust, heavy as the mansion itself. She'd never held power like this, never been given a choice that didn't come with strings. Her mind flashed to Ethan, studying late into the night, his dreams of becoming a doctor tethered to her calloused hands. What if she failed this test? What if she stepped out of her place and was punished for it? The fear was familiar, a shadow from years of being overlooked, dismissed because of her skin, her job, her past. Yet something in Daniel's gaze, a flicker of belief, urged her to reach out. Her fingers closed around the card, cold and foreign in her palm. Jessica, meanwhile, slipped the card into her clutch with a practiced ease, her smirk widening. "Well, this is unexpected," she said, her voice light but laced with ambition. 3 days, no limits. That's a canvas I can paint on." Her eyes gleamed with plans already forming. Boutiques on Magnificent Mile, a dinner at Alinea, perhaps a call to a certain influencer she'd been eyeing. She glanced at Zuri, her smile tightening. The maid's hesitation was almost amusing, a reminder of the gap between them. Jessica knew how to play this game. She'd been preparing for it her whole life. Daniel's lips twitched, not quite a smile. 72-hour, he said. "No rules, no explanations needed, but every choice will tell me who you are." He stood, his shadow long against the polished floor, and left the room without another word. The clock ticked louder now, marking the start of something neither woman could fully grasp. Zuri clutched the card, her heart a storm of doubt and duty. Jessica's fingers brushed her clutch, her mind already racing toward triumph. In this quiet mansion, a battle of values was about to begin, one that would unravel secrets and forge a legacy neither could predict. The Chicago skyline glittered beyond the windows of Daniel Harper's mansion, but inside the air crackled with a different kind of energy. Anticipation, uncertainty, and the weight of choices yet to be made. The black credit cards, now in the hands of Zuri Johnson and Jessica Miller, were no longer just plastic. They were keys to a test that would lay bare their souls. As the first of the 72 hours ticked by, the two women stepped into the city, each carrying their burdens and dreams, their paths diverging like rivers splitting at a fork. Zuri Johnson walked the bustling streets of Chicago's South Side, her white and blue maid's uniform traded for a simple gray sweater and jeans, the black card tucked inside her worn leather purse. Her long black hair, usually pinned in a neat bun, fell loose in the autumn breeze. A rare moment of freedom. The card felt like a stone in her bag, heavy with possibility and peril. She'd barely slept, her mind churning with the fear of misusing Daniel's trust. Zuri had spent years scrubbing floors, invisible to the world except for Ethan, her 18-year-old brother, whose college textbook she paid for with every aching shift. She thought of him now, hunched over his biology notes, dreaming of a future she'd never had. The card could change his life, pay off his tuition, buy him a laptop, maybe even a car. But as she passed a crumbling school with faded murals and boarded windows, her heart tugged in another direction. She slipped into a nearby library, the scent of old books grounding her. Sitting at a worn table, she opened her phone and searched. Chicago schools in need. Her fingers trembled as she read about underfunded classrooms, kids learning without books, and teachers buying supplies with their own money. Her breath steadied. This was bigger than her. bigger than Ethan. She opened the payment app, hesitated, then typed $12,000 to a local school for textbooks and desks credited to Daniel Harper. No name, no trace of her. Then another, $7,000 to a free clinic in Inglewood for medical supplies, again in Daniel's name. Her chest loosened, a quiet warmth spreading. She wasn't failing him. She was honoring him. Across town, Jessica Miller swept through the glittering corridors of Magnificent Mile, her burgundy bodycon dress catching every eye. The halter neck left her shoulders bare, the high slit on her left thigh flashing with each confident step. Her platinum blonde curls bounced, and her crimson lips parted in a smile that was both weapon and shield. The metallic clutch in her hand held the black card, a trophy she wielded with ease. She strode into a boutique, the kind where sales associates moved like shadows, offering champagne and deference. A $4,500 haute couture dress, emerald silk, cut to perfection, was hers in minutes. At a jeweler's, she selected a $10,000 pearl necklace, its luster a quiet boast of her taste. She booked a penthouse suite at a five-star hotel for a weekend escape, the $3,000 deposit a mere flick of the card. Each swipe was a declaration. Jessica Miller belonged in this world. She paused before a mirror, snapping a selfie, the necklace gleaming against her collarbone. The post went live on Instagram, tagged with Shakshawiyus living the dream, her followers' likes pouring in like applause. She imagined Daniel seeing her purchases, nodding in approval at her ability to seize opportunity. This was her moment, and she would paint it in bold strokes. Back at the mansion, Daniel sat in his study, a sleek monitor displaying real-time transaction alerts. His fingers traced the rim of a coffee mug, untouched, as he watched the numbers roll in. Jessica Miller, $4,500, Neiman Marcus. Jessica Miller, $10,000, Tiffany & Cohen. Jessica Miller, $3,000, the Peninsula Hotel. Predictable, he thought, his lips thinning. Jessica was a comet, bright and blazing, but her light was all for herself. Then a different alert. Daniel Harper, $12,000, Southside Community School. His brow furrowed. Another. Daniel Harper, $7,000, Inglewood Free Clinic. He leaned forward, the mug forgotten. He hadn't made those transactions. A quick check confirmed it. The card was Zuri's. His pulse quickened, not with suspicion, but with a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Zuri, the maid he trusted for her quiet loyalty, was giving away thousands without a whisper of credit. Why? He'd chosen her for this test because of the way she'd cared for Sarah, the way she'd stayed late to polish silver or tend the garden, never asking for recognition. But this was something more. Zuri left the library, her steps lighter now. She walked past a community center, its faded sign announcing a food drive. She stopped, her mind flashing to her childhood, to nights when she and Ethan shared a single can of soup. She pulled out her phone again, transferring $5,000 to the center's pantry fund, still under Daniel's name. She didn't linger for thanks, didn't want it. The card was his, the good should be too. But as she walked away, a shadow of doubt crept in. Would Daniel understand? Or would he think she was playing a game, trying to win his favor? Her hands tightened around her purse, the weight of her past, being dismissed, overlooked, judged for her skin and her job, pressing down. She shook it off, thinking of Ethan's smile when he aced his exams. This was for him, for others like him. Jessica, meanwhile, was already planning her next move. She sat in a sleek cafe, sipping an espresso, her white stilettos crossed elegantly. She'd called a photographer friend, arranging a shoot to showcase her new purchases. Another call secured a dinner reservation at a Linnea, where she'd mingle with Chicago's elite. Her phone buzzed with notifications, her post climbing to hundreds of likes. She smiled, but a tiny thorn of unease pricked her. What was Zuri doing? The maid hadn't posted anything, hadn't bragged. Jessica's eyes narrowed. Was she just sitting on the card, too timid to act? Or was she up to something else? The thought gnawed at her, a crack in her confidence. She pushed it aside, focusing on her next purchase, a $2,000 handbag, a statement of her assent. In the mansion, Daniel's gaze lingered on the screen. Zuri's transactions were a quiet symphony, each note striking a chord he thought he'd forgotten. Sarah had always said, Real giving asks for nothing back. Was Zuri that rare soul? He leaned back, his mind a tangle of admiration and caution. Jessica's a performance, polished and loud. Zuri's was a whisper, but one that echoed in his chest. The clock ticked on, each second pulling them deeper into a test that would unravel truths neither woman could foresee. The grand halls of Daniel Harper's mansion buzzed with an undercurrent of tension, like a string pulled taut, ready to snap. 2 days into the black card test, Zuri Johnson and Jessica Miller had carved starkly different paths with their limitless cards, each swipe revealing more than they intended. Zuri's quiet donations had begun to ripple, stirring whispers among the staff, while Jessica's lavish purchases painted her ambition in bold strokes. But now, as the second day waned, the fault lines between them widened, and the mansion became a stage for a brewing storm, one that would test not just their choices, but their resolve. Zuri moved silently through the East Wing, her white and blue uniform pristine, her long black hair swept into its familiar bun. Her hands, roughened by years of scrubbing and folding, carried a stack of freshly laundered towels. But her thoughts were elsewhere, on the $20,000 she'd sent to a Southside orphanage for a new roof, and the $6,000 for Ethan's college scholarship fund, all under Daniel's name. Each act felt like a tether to her brother, her anchor, the reason she'd sacrificed her own dreams. At 18, Ethan was her light, his texts about late-night study sessions fueling her quiet strength. But the mansion's atmosphere had shifted. The staff's glances were colder now, their hushed conversations halting when she passed. "She's just a maid. What's she doing with that kind of money?" The words overheard in the pantry cut deep, rekindling the old sting of being dismissed. For her skin, her job, her past. Zuri had endured taunts before, growing up with nothing but her will to protect Ethan. Yet here, in this gilded cage, the isolation felt sharper, a reminder of her place. She swallowed the hurt, focusing on Ethan's future. But doubt crept in. Was she betraying Daniel's trust by giving so freely? Jessica Miller, meanwhile, was a vision of calculated power, her burgundy bodycon dress clinging to her frame, the high slit on her left thigh flashing with each step. Her platinum blonde curls framed a face that radiated confidence. Her crimson lips a bold statement of control. She'd added to her haul a $5,000 leather jacket from a boutique on Oak Street, a $2,500 spa treatment at a Gold Coast salon, each purchase a brick in the empire she was building for herself. Her Instagram glowed with curated shots, her metallic clutch in white stilettos gleaming in filtered light, amassing likes and envy. But during a morning briefing, she'd caught Daniel's eyes lingering on his tablet, not her reports. A quick glance at his screen revealed transaction alerts. Daniel Harper, $20,000 Southside Orphanage. Daniel Harper, $6,000 University Scholarship Fund. Her jaw tightened, a spark of jealousy flaring. Zuri, the maid, was stealing her moment. Jessica leaned toward a junior staffer in the hallway, her voice a velvet blade. "She's playing saint to win him over," she whispered. "A maid with debts doesn't give away millions without an angle." The rumor spread like smoke, curling through the staff, tainting Zuri's every move. In his oak-paneled study, Daniel sat before his monitor, the glow illuminating the lines of a face hardened by grief. The transaction alerts told a tale of two women, Jessica's purchases, a loud parade of luxury, and Zuri's donations, a quiet hymn of generosity. He'd chosen Zuri for this test because of her years with Sarah, her gentle care during his wife's final days, bringing tea, tending roses, listening with a heart that seemed to understand loss. Sarah had loved her like a daughter, once saying, "Zuri's the kind who gives when no one's looking." But these donations, tens of thousands all in his name, stirred a mix of awe and caution. He trusted her, had seen her loyalty. But was this selflessness or strategy? He dialed the orphanage's director, a woman with a voice like gravel. "A young lady arranged the donation," she said. "Wouldn't give her name. Insisted it was your gift, Mr. Harper." Daniel's chest tightened, a flicker of Sarah's warmth stirring within him. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling, her memory a ghost in the room. Jessica's whispers grew bolder. She'd hired a private investigator, a man with a knack for unearthing shadows. By midday, he'd sent her a file. Zuri Johnson, high school dropout, $3,000 in medical debt from her mother's illness, sole provider for her brother. Jessica's crimson nails tapped her phone, a smile curling. She cornered another staffer in the kitchen, her tone laced with feigned worry. Zuri's got debts. What if she's using the card to cover them, hiding it behind these so-called donations? The rumor took root, spreading through the mansion's corridors. Zuri felt the shift, cooks avoiding her eyes, a gardener muttering as she passed. Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't fight back. Confrontation wasn't her way. Survival was. She'd learned young to keep her head down, to let the world's cruelty pass like a storm. But each whisper chipped at her resolve, threatening the hope she'd dared to hold. That afternoon, Zuri slipped out to a community center near the orphanage, the black card a quiet weight in her purse. She met the director, a man with tired eyes and a warm handshake, and arranged a $10,000 donation for after-school programs, credited to Daniel. She stayed to help sort canned goods, her hands moving with purpose, her heart steadying. The director thanked her, assuming she was Daniel's envoy. Zuri nodded, her smile soft but strained. As she walked to her bus stop, the city's hum felt distant, her mind heavy with the staff's scorn. She texted Ethan, "You're gonna make it, little man." His reply, a thumbs-up emoji, was a lifeline. Jessica, dining at Alinea, her white stilettos crossed under the table, secured a $100 reservation with the card. She laughed with a venture capitalist, her voice bright but her mind elsewhere. A staff group chat buzzed. Orphanage donations got Mr. Harper's name on it? Huge. Her grip on her wine glass tightened. Zuri wasn't just giving. She was eclipsing her. Jessica's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened, plotting her next move to ensure Zuri's fall. In his study, Daniel closed his laptop, the alerts lingering in his mind. Zuri's choices were a melody, soft but resonant, echoing Sarah's spirit. Jessica's were a drumbeat, loud and self-serving. Trust warred with doubt in his chest. The test was unraveling truths he hadn't expected, and the mansion's walls seemed to pulse with the weight of what was to come. The chandelier in Daniel Harper's dining room cast a golden glow over the mahogany table, but the warmth was a facade. As the final hours of the 72-hour test ticked away, the mansion's air was thick with unspoken accusations, and the weight of choices laid bare. Zuri Johnson and Jessica Miller sat across from each other, their black credit cards now silent witnesses to their diverging paths. The staff's whispers had grown into a venomous hum, fueled by Jessica's calculated rumors, and Zuri's quiet generosity had become a lightning rod for suspicion. Tonight, Daniel had called them to a private dinner, his face unreadable, his voice a low rumble that promised a reckoning. The question hung heavy. What had they revealed about themselves? Zuri sat stiffly, her white and blue uniform replaced by a simple navy blouse, its collar slightly frayed from years of wear. Her long black hair, still neatly pinned, framed a face etched with exhaustion and resolve. The past 2 days had been a gauntlet. $20,000 to an orphanage, $6,000 for Ethan's scholarship, $10,000 for a community center's programs, all given in Daniel's name. Each act had steadied her, a quiet rebellion against the world that saw her as less. But the staff's scorn had cut deeper than she'd expected. "She's just a maid, scheming for a payout," they'd whispered, their words echoing the taunts of her childhood when she and Ethan had survived on scraps and stubborn hope. She learned to stay silent, to let cruelty pass, but the rumors, fueled by Jessica's venom, threatened to unravel her. Her hands trembled in her lap, not from fear of Daniel, but from the weight of being seen and misunderstood. Ethan's latest text, "You're my hero, sis," burned in her mind, anchoring her. She glanced at Daniel, his gray eyes searching, and prayed he'd see her truth. Jessica, opposite her, was a vision of unyielding confidence. Her burgundy bodycon dress hugged her frame, the halter neck and thigh-high slit exuding power. Her platinum blonde curls gleamed, and her crimson lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd spent thousands more, a $7,000 watch, a $3,000 dinner with Chicago's elite, each purchase a step toward the life she craved. Her Instagram glowed with curated triumph, but Daniel's distance at meetings, his focus on his tablet, gnawed at her. She knew about Zuri's donations, the orphanage and community center plastered with Daniel's name. It wasn't just generosity, it was a threat. Jessica had escalated her campaign, leaking Zuri's past to a local gossip columnist. The dropout, the debt, the brother she carried like a burden. The article published that morning branded Zuri a charity case with an agenda. Jessica's heart raced with triumph, but a flicker of unease lingered. Had she pushed too far? She straightened, her white stilettos clicking softly, ready to claim her victory. Daniel sat at the head of the table, a glass of untouched scotch before him. The monitor in his study had told a story he couldn't ignore. Jessica's purchases, a loud symphony of self-interest. Zuri's donations, a quiet ode to selflessness. He'd chosen Zuri for her loyalty, her years of tending to Sarah with a care that felt like family. Sarah had once said, "Zuri's heart is bigger than this house," but the rumors, seeded by Jessica, had stirred doubt. Was Zuri's generosity a mask? He'd called the community center, learning she'd not only donated, but stayed to help, refusing credit. His trust in her held, but the article, vicious personal, had shaken him. He cleared his throat, his voice steady but sharp. "You've had 2 days," he said, eyes moving between them. "What have you learned about yourselves?" Jessica spoke first, her voice smooth as silk. "I've learned I know how to seize an opportunity," she said, her smile unwavering. "This world rewards those who show up, who build something bold. I didn't waste your gift, Daniel. I used it to create a presence." Her words were a polished performance, but her fingers tightened around her metallic clutch, betraying a flicker of doubt. She glanced at Zuri, expecting her to falter. Zuri's breath caught, her throat tight with the weight of the room. The article's words, opportunist, manipulative, echoed in her mind, mingling with the staff's whispers. She felt exposed, her past laid bare for judgment. But she thought of Ethan, of the kids at the orphanage who'd sleep under a new roof, of the clinic patients who'd get medicine. She met Daniel's gaze, her voice trembling but clear. "I learned I can't change how people see me," she said. "I took your card because you trusted me, and I used it to help people like my brother, people who don't get chances. It's your money, so it's your kindness. I just wanted it to matter." Her eyes glistened, not with shame, but with the raw honesty of someone who'd spent years invisible, now daring to be seen. The silence was heavy, the chandelier's light casting long shadows. Jessica's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. "Modesty's a cute act," she said, her tone sharp. "But we all know charity can hide ambition." Zuri flinched, the words a dagger, but she held her ground, her hands steadying. Daniel's gaze lingered on her, his expression softening, a flicker of Sarah's warmth in his eyes. He turned to Jessica. "And your ambition, what does it hide?" Jessica froze, her crimson lips parting, but no words came. Daniel stood, his chair scraping softly. "I trusted you both," he said, his voice low. "Zuri, I'm not surprised by your choices, but I'm still learning what they mean. Jessica, your choices are clear, but they're not the whole story." He paused, his eyes on Zuri. "A shelter director emailed me today, thanking me for a donation I didn't make. They said a woman insisted it was my gift, not hers." Zuri's cheeks flushed, her heart pounding. Daniel's gaze held hers, not with suspicion, but with something deeper, respect, tinged with awe. Jessica's face tightened, her stilettos shifting under the table. She'd expected Zuri to crumble, but the maid's quiet strength was shifting the ground beneath her. Zuri looked down, not wanting praise or pity, just to escape the weight of their eyes. But Daniel's voice cut through. "This isn't over," he said. "Your truths are still unfolding." He left the room, his footsteps echoing in the vast hall. Zuri rose, her navy blouse catching the light, her heart a storm of relief and fear. Jessica stood too, her burgundy dress a stark contrast, her eyes blazing. "You think you've won," she hissed, stepping closer. "But this game's bigger than you." Zuri met her gaze, her voice soft but firm. "I'm not playing a game. I'm just trying to do right." She turned and walked away, her steps steady, carrying the weight of a truth that was only beginning to shine. The dining room's chandelier still hummed with the echo of Daniel Harper's words, but the mansion's air had shifted, charged with the weight of truths laid bare. The 72-hour test was over, and the black cards, once symbols of boundless possibility, now held the stark reality of Zuri Johnson's and Jessica Miller's choices. Zuri's selfless donations had stirred Daniel's heart, rekindling memories of his late wife, Sarah, while Jessica's lavish spending had exposed her ambition. But the whispers of Jessica's rumors, now solidified in a vicious article, hung like a storm cloud, threatening to unravel Zuri's fragile hope. As the mansion settled into an uneasy quiet, a revelation was brewing, one that would shift the balance and set the stage for a legacy reborn. Zuri moved through the kitchen, her white and blue uniform pressed, her long black hair pinned tightly in its bun, her hands steady despite the ache in her chest, polished silverware with mechanical precision. The article, branding her a manipulative opportunist, had spread through the staff like wildfire, their glances now sharp with judgment. "She's just a maid playing at charity," they'd muttered, their words slicing into the wounds of her past. Growing up, Zuri had faced taunts for her worn clothes, her dark skin, and her quiet demeanor. She learned to swallow pain, to keep moving for Ethan, her 18-year-old brother, whose dreams of becoming a doctor rested on her shoulders. But the betrayal here, in a place where she'd given years of loyalty, stung deeper. She thought of Ethan's latest text. "You've got this, sis." It was enough to keep her standing, but the doubt lingered. Had she betrayed Daniel's trust by giving so much? Her donations, $20,000 to an orphanage, $6,000 for Ethan's scholarship, $10,000 for a community center, were meant to honor him, not to claim glory. Yet the world saw her as a schemer, and the weight of it pressed against her heart. Jessica, meanwhile, strode through the mansion's foyer, her burgundy bodycon dress a bold contrast to the muted elegance around her. The halter neck and thigh-high slit accentuated her confidence, her platinum blonde curls bouncing with each step. Her crimson lips curved, but the smile was brittle. Her purchases, a $7,000 watch, a $3,000 dinner, a $5,000 jacket, had painted her as a star. But Daniel's silence at dinner had shaken her. She'd orchestrated the article, feeding the columnist Zuri's past, the dropout, the debt, the brother she carried like a chain. It was meant to bury Zuri, to secure Jessica's place as Daniel's indispensable ally. But as she passed a group of staff, their whispers shifted, not about Zuri, but about her. "She went too far," one said. Jessica's heart raced, a crack forming in her carefully built facade. Had she miscalculated? Her white stilettos clicked faster as she headed to her office, determined to salvage her position. Daniel sat in his study, the glow of his monitor casting shadows across his weathered face. The transaction alerts were a map of two souls. Jessica's, a blaze of self-interest. Zuri's, a quiet constellation of generosity. He'd trusted Zuri for years, her care for Sarah a testament to a heart he believed in. But the article, its venomous lies about Zuri's motives, had stirred a flicker of doubt. Had he been wrong to trust her so fully? He called the Southside Orphanage, speaking to a director who raved about a young woman who donated and helped repair a broken heater, refusing credit. "She said it was your gift, Mr. Harper," the director said. Daniel's breath caught, the echo of Sarah's voice. "Give without taking," ringing in his mind. Then in a dusty drawer, he found a notebook, Sarah's handwriting on its pages. Tucked inside was a letter from Zuri, written after Sarah's death. "You saw something in me I didn't. I want to make you proud, to help people the way you did." His hands trembled, the words a mirror to Zuri's actions. She wasn't playing a game. She was living Sarah's truth. That afternoon, Daniel summoned Jessica to his study. She entered, her metallic clutch clutched tightly, her smile a mask. "Jessica," he said, his voice cold. I know you leaked the article. Her eyes widened, but she recovered quickly. I was protecting your interests, she said, her voice smooth. She's a liability, a maid with no credentials, throwing your money around. Daniel's gaze hardened. You've been with me for years and I trusted your judgment. But this was betrayal. Jessica's lips parted, but no words came. Leave, he said, his tone final. She stood, her stilettos faltering, and left without a word, the door clicking shut like a guillotine. Zuri, unaware of Jessica's dismissal, continued her work, polishing a silver tray as the staff's whispers grew louder. She felt their eyes, their judgment, but kept her focus on Ethan, on the kids who'd sleep warm because of her choices. Then a call came from the community center's director, thanking Mr. Harper for her help. A young woman stayed to sort supplies, he said. She didn't want credit. Zuri's heart swelled, but the article's sting lingered. She slipped into Sarah's old study, a room untouched since her death, and sat at the desk. She pulled out a notebook, writing, I didn't ask for this, but I won't let their lies break me. For Ethan, for Sarah, I'll keep going. Daniel found her there, the letter still in his hand. Zuri, he said softly, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. She looked up, startled, her eyes glassy. I found this, he said, holding up her letter, and I saw your donations. Why didn't you take credit? Zuri's voice was barely a whisper. It's your money, Mr. Harper. I just wanted it to mean something. He sat across from her, his eyes searching. Sarah's dream was a foundation for the forgotten. I thought I'd never find someone to carry it. I was wrong. He paused, his voice thick. I want you to lead it, Sarah's haven, a shelter for those with nowhere else to go. Zuri's breath caught, her hands trembling. I'm just a maid, she said, the words heavy with years of doubt. You're more than that, Daniel replied. You always were. The room fell silent, the weight of his trust settling over her like a mantle. For the first time, Zuri felt seen, not as a shadow but as a light. Jessica's rumors had failed, and Zuri's truth was rising, a beacon that would soon illuminate a path far beyond the mansion's walls. The grand halls of Daniel Harper's Chicago mansion were quieter now, as if the walls themselves exhaled after the storm of the black card test. Jessica Miller's departure had left a void, her absence a silent admission of defeat, but the whispers among the staff lingered, their edges softer but still sharp. Zuri Johnson, once invisible in her white and blue uniform, now stood at a crossroads, her heart a tangle of doubt and newfound purpose. Daniel's trust, cemented by her selfless choices, $20,000 to an orphanage, $6,000 for her brother Ethan's scholarship, $10,000 for a community center, had shifted something fundamental. Sarah's haven, a shelter born from his late wife's dream, was now Zuri's to lead. But the weight of that responsibility and the sting of lingering rumors pressed against her as she faced a moment that would define not just her future, but the legacy she dared to embrace. Zuri stood in the mansion's garden, the roses Sarah once loved swaying gently in the late afternoon breeze. Her long black hair, still pinned neatly in its bun, caught the fading sunlight, and her simple navy skirt and blouse replaced the uniform she'd worn for years. Her hands, calloused from labor, clutched a small notebook where she'd scribbled plans for Sarah's haven. A shelter with warm beds, trauma-informed spaces, and programs to lift the forgotten. The article Jessica had orchestrated, branding Zuri a scheming opportunist, still burned in her memory, its lies echoing the taunts of her childhood. Orphaned young, she'd fought to keep Ethan safe, dropping out of school to work, her dreams shrinking to fit his. The staff's cold glances, their murmurs of, she's just a maid, had nearly broken her. But Ethan's text from this morning, you're changing the world, sis, held her steady. She'd given everything to prove she was more than her past. But could she carry a dream this big? Daniel stood in his study, the letter Zuri wrote to Sarah still on his desk, its words a quiet testament to her heart. He'd trusted her for years, seen her care for Sarah with a tenderness that mirrored his wife's compassion. The black card test had confirmed it. Zuri's donations, all anonymous, were a mirror of Sarah's belief. Give without taking. Jessica's betrayal had been a blow, her rumors a calculated strike. But Zuri's resilience had turned the tide. He confronted Jessica, sent her away, but the damage lingered in the staff's skepticism. Daniel knew he had to act. He called the staff to the grand hall, his voice steady but firm. "I trusted two women with a test," he said, his gray eyes sweeping the room. "One chose herself, the other chose others. Zuri Johnson is no opportunist. She's the future of Sarah's Haven." He paused, his gaze softening as it landed on Zuri, who stood at the back, her eyes wide. "I was wrong to let the rumors spread. She's earned my trust, and she deserves yours." The staff shifted, some nodding, others averting their eyes. Zuri's throat tightened, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and fear. She wasn't used to being seen, let alone defended. She stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "I took the card because Mr. Harper trusted me, and I used it for people like my brother, people who need a chance. I'll lead Sarah's Haven the same way. For them, not for me." Her words hung in the air, and a few staff members clapped, their applause tentative but growing. A cook, who'd once ignored her, offered a small smile. The tide was turning, but Zuri knew it wasn't over. Jessica's shadow lingered, her article still circulating in Chicago's gossip circles. That evening, Zuri organized a community meeting at a local rec center, a modest space with flickering lights and folding chairs. She wore a simple green dress, her hands trembling as she faced a small crowd. Shelter workers, single mothers, local teachers. She'd never spoken publicly, but Daniel's trust and Ethan's belief pushed her forward. "My name is Zuri Johnson," she began, her voice steadying. "I know what it's like to feel invisible. I grew up with nothing, raising my brother after our parents died. When Mr. Harper gave me a chance, I used it to help kids like Ethan, families like mine. Sarah's Haven isn't just a shelter, it's a home for the forgotten." She shared her story, her voice breaking as she spoke of Ethan's dreams, her mother's sacrifices. A teacher stood, tears in her eyes. "You're giving my students hope," she said. Others nodded, their applause warm and real. Zuri's chest swelled, not with pride, but with purpose. Meanwhile, Jessica sat in her downtown apartment, her burgundy dress discarded for sweats, her platinum curls limp. Her metallic clutch lay empty, the black card gone. She'd tried to call Daniel, her voice shaking in a voicemail. "I was wrong, but I was loyal for years. Doesn't that count?" His silence was her answer. She scrolled through Instagram, her posts now mocked in comments. "Where's your charity, Jess?" She'd underestimated Zuri, thought the Maid would crumble under scrutiny. Instead, Zuri had risen, and Jessica's ambition had burned her. She packed a suitcase, her crimson lipstick untouched, and booked a flight out of Chicago. She'd lost not just the test, but her place in a world she'd fought to claim. Back at the mansion, Daniel found Zuri in Sarah's study, sketching plans for Sarah's Haven. "They believed you," he said, his voice soft. "The community, they're with you." Zuri looked up, her eyes glistening. "I was scared," she admitted. "I thought they'd see the article, not me." Daniel sat across from her, his hands folded. "They saw you because you showed them your heart. Sarah would have loved that." He slid a folder across the desk. "Blueprints for the shelter, approved by the city." "This is yours now," he said. Zuri's breath caught, her fingers tracing the pages. She thought of Ethan, of the kids she'd helped, of Sarah's roses. "I won't let her down," she said, her voice firm. Daniel nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "You already haven't." Zuri left the study, her notebook clutched to her chest. The rumors hadn't vanished, but they were fading, drowned out by the truth of her actions. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a builder, a dreamer, a woman stepping into a legacy she'd never imagined. The mansion's walls seemed to hum with possibility, and for the first time, Zuri felt not just seen, but unstoppable. The Chicago mansion of Daniel Harper stood bathed in the soft glow of dawn, its grand walls no longer a cage but a quiet witness to a transformation. The black card test had ended, its revelations reshaping the lives within. Zuri Johnson, once a shadow in a white and blue uniform, had emerged as a beacon, her selfless choices, $20,000 to an orphanage, $6,000 for her brother Ethan's scholarship, $10,000 for a community center, cementing her as the heir to Sarah Harper's legacy. Jessica Miller's ambition had crumbled under the weight of her own betrayal, her absence now a faint echo. As Sarah's haven, the shelter Zuri was tasked to lead, prepared to open its doors, the air hummed with promise. But Zuri carried the weight of her new role, her past, and the dreams she'd fought to protect. Zuri stood in the garden where Sarah's roses bloomed, their petals vibrant against the morning mist. Her long black hair, swept into its familiar bun, caught the light, but she'd traded her uniform for a simple emerald dress, its hue a nod to the hope she now carried. Her hands, rough from years of labor, held a small brass key, a relic from Sarah's first shelter in Chicago, given to her by Daniel the night before. "She'd want you to have this," he'd said, his voice thick with emotion. Zuri's fingers traced the key's worn edges, her heart swelling with reverence. She'd grown up invisible, orphaned young, sacrificing her own dreams to ensure Ethan, now 18 and thriving in college, could chase his. The staff's rumors, Jessica's vicious article, had nearly broken her. But the community's applause at the rec center had lifted her. Ethan's text from last night, "You're my everything, sis," burned in her chest, a reminder of why she'd endured. Yet standing here, she felt the weight of Sarah's haven, a shelter meant to be a home for the forgotten. Could she, a maid who'd once scrubbed these floors, truly lead it? Daniel stood at the edge of the garden, watching Zuri with a quiet intensity. His silver-flecked hair gleamed in the sunlight, his gray eyes softened by a pride he hadn't felt since Sarah's days. He'd trusted Zuri for years, seen her care for his wife with a tenderness that mirrored Sarah's own heart. The black card test had been his way to confirm it, to see if her loyalty held under pressure. Her donations, all in his name, had shaken him, not just for their generosity, but for their humility. Jessica's betrayal had been a bitter lesson, but Zuri's resilience, her refusal to claim credit, had rekindled a hope he thought lost. He approached, holding a folder with the final permits for Sarah's haven. "It's happening," he said, his voice steady. "The opening's tomorrow. The city's behind you." Zuri's eyes widened, her breath catching. "Tomorrow," she whispered, her fingers tightening around the key. Daniel nodded. "And Ethan's coming. He called, said he wouldn't miss it." The opening of Sarah's haven was held in a converted warehouse in Chicago's West Side, its brick exterior softened by string lights and murals painted by local artists. No chandeliers, no velvet ropes, just folding chairs, a table of coffee and donuts, and a crowd of community members, teachers, single mothers, shelter volunteers. Zuri stood at the entrance, her emerald dress catching the light, welcoming each guest with a smile that hid her nerves. Her hands trembled, but Ethan's arrival steadied her. He hugged her tightly, his lanky frame towering over her, his eyes bright with pride. "You did this, Zuri," he said, his voice thick. "Mom would be so proud." Zuri's throat tightened, memories of their mother's sacrifices flooding back. She led him inside, pointing out the trauma-informed rooms, the warm amber walls, the bookshelves stocked for kids like him. Daniel took the stage, a simple platform in the center of the warehouse. "Sarah believed in homes, not just shelters," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "She saw dignity where others saw despair. Zuri Johnson carries that vision." He gestured to her, his eyes meeting hers. "She's not here to fix people, she's here to lift them." The crowd clapped, their applause a wave of warmth. Zuri stepped forward, her heart pounding. "I know what it's like to feel unseen," she said, her voice clear despite the tremor in her chest. "I grew up with nothing, raising my brother after we lost our parents. Sarah's haven is for people like us, people who deserve a door, not a wall." She paused, her eyes finding Ethan's. "This isn't my home, it's ours." The room erupted, teachers and mothers standing, their cheers a chorus of belief. Ethan wiped his eyes, his smile wide. Later, Daniel found Zuri by a mural of a blooming rose, a nod to Sarah's garden. He held out the brass key, now polished to a soft shine. "This belongs to you," he said. "Not because you're a maid, or because you gave money away, because you gave yourself." Zuri took the key, her fingers trembling, tears brimming. I was scared I'd fail her, she whispered. Daniel's smile was gentle. You've done what I couldn't. You made her dream real. She nodded, clutching the key, thinking of her mother, of Ethan, of the faces in the crowd. She wasn't invisible anymore. That night, Zuri sat in Sarah's old study, the key on the desk beside her notebook. She wrote, I thought I'd always be the girl in the shadows, cleaning floors, hiding from the world's judgment. But today I built a door. For Ethan, for Mom, for Sarah, for me. She closed the book, her heart full. The mansion's silence felt different now. Not heavy, but sacred, like a promise kept. Sarah's haven was open, and Zuri, once a maid, was now its heart. A woman whose quiet strength had forged a legacy that would echo far beyond these walls. Zuri Johnson's journey from a quiet maid to the heart of Sarah's haven reminds us that true strength lies in lifting others, even when the world tries to keep you small. Her story is a beacon of hope, showing that compassion and resilience can forge a legacy that outshines any wealth. We hope Zuri's courage inspires you to see the power in your own choices. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from and how this story touched you. Thank you for joining us on this journey, for listening with open hearts. Subscribe to stay with us, and we'll see you in the next story, where new voices and dreams await.